think it's, at the moment, I think the time is right. You're quite right, it's not a new concept. I think, particularly this conference, about the role of local authorities, it's about place. So I think local authorities and what they do, despite all the budgetary pressures they're under, health in local authorities is the right place at local level, and they have the ability to bring people together. So, as you say, health in all policies is true and always has been true. It's a bit of a truism, but the ability to actually do it and implement it and bring partners together locally is what the difference is at the moment. Well, we know from the academic work that a healthy workforce or a healthy population is very important for the economy. So that's one of the reasons why Greater Manchester got its devolution deal. It wasn't actually a health deal, it was an economic deal. But their focus on health, and particularly mental health in their population, actually increases productive capacity of Manchester. They benchmarked themselves against other European cities in terms of what I recall, and found they were lacking. And one of the ways that they can actually improve their economic performance is to invest in their workforce, and particularly working age populations, and focus on mental health. So it can be a win-win, and that's what doing things at local place and thinking broadly about health can help you achieve. Well, we can't avoid budgets, we can't avoid the money. It's not just about the money, but the money is a real issue. That's both in the NHS, but as critically, in fact, probably more critically for long-term health in local authorities. And local authorities are really struggling with their funding. So one of the challenges is how to support them from the centre. I think one thing that would help, from this is a personal view, maybe not a King's Fund view, not because it wouldn't be a King's Fund view, because we haven't sort of really thought about it in great depth, or we haven't sort of come out with a position on this, is the role of something like the Cabinet Office to try and bring the other government departments together around health, without lecturing and hectoring about their roles in health, but just to try and do that coordination centrally. The Department of Health is important, but a lot of that Department of Health's focus is of course on the NHS and social care to some extent. So actually there's a bit of a missing gap at the moment nationally at government level on focusing on long-term health outcomes. PHE is really important, but it has a sort of evidence and an advisory role. It's not necessarily a decision-making body. So stronger decision-making at national government level, and maybe there's a role for the Cabinet Office in helping to bring that about. Legion, I think we've had a lot of conversations around that today. Evidence, understanding of that, making the evidence easy to digest. Some of the conference today has been about that. Culture. There's a long list, but the key thing about everything on that list is that none of it is insurmountable. So bringing together the evidence, supporting culture change, and I see that happening particularly in local government. Supportive national government, national policies, national framework, and also the story, the narrative being strong, so that when and it's really interesting looking perhaps across our internal borders, looking at Wales. I've heard that they have all the same issues that we have around healthcare and social care, but their story, their national narrative is about future generations and the health of future generations, not necessarily about the healthcare system. So I think even sort of like more people talking about long-term health as an issue, as opposed to short-term financial issues in the health and care system, is helpful. Not that those aren't critical and important, but it's not the only game in town. I think they need to focus where they decide to focus with their population, so they can be supported by that, by some of the infrastructure, so their joint strategic needs assessments. Obviously this is political, there are value judgments and choices here, so I wouldn't presume to tell them to focus on area A, B or C. However, there are quite a lot of tools out there that helps them think through, helps them sort and sift the evidence, some of which we talked about today. Some of which are on the King's Fund's website, but also other people at LGA. So there's lots more now, probably in the last 2 or 3 years, that will help them do that. but I wouldn't be presumptuous to tell them where they should definitely start. That's for them to make that decision. I think today's been great. I think one of the great things about this is both the number of people here and the diversity of people in the audience, which says to me we've got to a tipping point. So there are such a range of people from the health and care sector, people from way outside the health and care sector, professionals, community members, volunteers. I think that's really powerful. Obviously the speakers, with the exception of myself, are a great bunch of speakers who complement each other very well. So hopefully what people will take away from it is some useful support, reinforcement, the fact that this can be done, and there are things to take away from the conference which will help them do it locally.